Title: The Forgotten Kingdom and the Last Hope. In a distant realm, hidden beneath the shadows of time, there once stood a mighty kingdom. The kingdom of Aloria, a place of prosperity, wisdom, and hope. But it is no more. It vanished into the mist, lost to history, and forgotten by the world. Yet, within its ruins, there lies a secret, a hope that could restore its glory and change the fate of all who dwell in the land. This is the tale of the last hope of Aloria and the brave soul who will seek it. Long ago, Aloria was a land bathed in sunlight. Towering castles, golden fields, and vibrant forests stretched across the horizon. Its people, guided by the ancient wisdom of the elders, lived in peace. But peace, as it often does, was fleeting. The darkness arrived, creeping in from the edges of the kingdom. It was not a force of armies or weapons but a force of corruption that slowly turned the land cold, barren, and lifeless. The once thriving cities fell silent, and the once lush fields turned to dust. The people fought valiantly, but the darkness was too strong, too insidious. One by one, the great cities fell. Aloria's rulers, desperate to save their kingdom, turned to an ancient artifact, hidden deep within the heart of the kingdom, the Crystal of Light. It was said to hold the power to banish darkness and restore balance. But when the time came to use it, the crystal shattered, and with it, the last hope of Aloria vanished. And so, the kingdom of Aloria was forgotten. Its name became a mere whisper on the wind, a legend told only in secret, passed down through generations. Many centuries passed, and the world moved on. New kingdoms rose, and new heroes were born. Yet, in the quiet corners of the world, the memory of Aloria lingered. In a small village far from the ruins of the kingdom, a young orphan named Lyra lived. Her parents had died when she was young, and she was raised by her grandmother, a wise woman who had known of the old legends. Lyra had always felt different from the others. There was something inside her, a calling, an unexplainable feeling that something greater awaited her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, her grandmother took her aside. "Lyra," she said, "you are the last of the bloodline of Aloria. The hope of the kingdom rests with you." Lyra was stunned. "But how? I'm just a girl from a small village." Her grandmother smiled gently. "You carry within you the blood of the last king of Aloria. The crystal's power may have been lost, but there is another way. The last hope of Aloria is not in the crystal, but in the heart of the one who carries its blood." With her grandmother's words echoing in her heart, Lyra set out on a journey to uncover the lost secrets of Aloria. She traveled through forests, across mountains, and over vast seas, facing trials and dangers at every turn. But with each challenge, she grew stronger, her resolve firmer. She was not alone on her journey. Along the way, she was joined by companions, a skilled archer named Kale, a former knight of Aloria named Aemon, and a mysterious mage named Nyx, who had once served the kingdom's court. Together, they braved the harsh wilderness and the creatures that now roamed the forgotten land. One night, as they camped by a river, Lyra sat by the fire, gazing at the stars. Aemon approached her, his armor glinting in the moonlight. "Do you really believe there is hope?" he asked quietly. "The kingdom is lost. It's been forgotten by time itself." Lyra turned to him, her eyes bright with determination. "I have to believe there is hope, or else everything we do is for nothing. Aloria is not gone, it's only waiting for someone to bring it back." Aemon nodded, his expression softening. "Then we will find that hope together." Their journey led them deep into the heart of the kingdom's ruins. The land was desolate, the remnants of the once great cities now nothing more than broken stone and forgotten memories. Yet, within the ruins of Aloria's capital, they found a hidden entrance, an ancient temple that had been sealed for centuries. Inside, the walls were etched with runes, and at the center of the temple lay a pedestal. Upon it rested a single, glowing stone, the heart of Aloria. It was the source of the kingdom's power, its connection to the light that had once guided them all. As Lyra approached the stone, a shadow rose from the darkness. A figure emerged, cloaked in black. It was the embodiment of the corruption that had once destroyed the kingdom, the Dark One. "You dare to seek what is mine?" the figure hissed. Lyra stood tall, her heart racing. "I seek not to take, but to restore. Aloria is not yours to claim. It belongs to the people, to the light, and to hope." With that, the battle began. The Dark One's power was immense, but Lyra's resolve was stronger. Her companions fought bravely by her side, but it was Lyra's heart that held the key. As she placed her hand upon the heart of Aloria, a surge of light burst forth, banishing the darkness and restoring the balance. The kingdom was reborn. The fields once again flourished, and the people returned, rebuilding the land that had been lost. Lyra, now hailed as the savior of Aloria, stood before the people, her heart filled with both sorrow and joy. "The darkness may return," she said, "but so too will the light. Aloria is not just a kingdom, it is a symbol of hope, and as long as we have hope, we will never be lost." And so, the forgotten kingdom was restored, not by power or strength alone, but by the unwavering hope that lay within the hearts of those who believed. The kingdom of Aloria, once lost to time, was now a shining beacon of hope in the world. And as long as the last hope remained, it would never be forgotten again. The days following the restoration of Aloria were filled with hope and renewal. The once barren fields bloomed once more, and the rivers, which had long run dry, now flowed with crystal clear water. The people of Aloria, who had scattered in the wake of the kingdom's fall, returned from distant lands, drawn by the light that now bathed the land. They rebuilt their homes, their cities, and their lives. Yet, amid the joy, Lyra felt a deep uncertainty. The darkness that had once gripped Aloria had been banished, but for how long? She knew that evil, like the night, would always seek to return. The heart of Aloria had given them a second chance, but the balance between light and dark was delicate. One evening, as she stood at the edge of the kingdom, overlooking the vast landscape that was once again thriving, Kale approached her. His bow slung over his shoulder, his face as calm as ever, he spoke. "You did it, Lyra. The kingdom is alive again. But I can see it in your eyes, you're not at peace." Lyra sighed, her fingers brushing the cool surface of the heart of Aloria, which rested in a newly built temple at the center of the kingdom. The stone pulsed with a gentle light, like the heartbeat of the land itself. "I wonder," she said quietly, "if we've truly won. The darkness is gone for now. But what if it returns? What if we fail?" Kale smiled softly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We didn't just restore Aloria. We restored the belief that hope can triumph over darkness. As long as we keep that belief alive, we will never fail." Lyra nodded, the weight in her heart lifting slightly. She had always believed that the power to change the world came from the heart, from the unyielding will to persevere even when faced with impossible odds. Days turned into weeks, and life in Aloria gradually returned to normal. Yet, unbeknownst to Lyra and her companions, there were those who lingered in the shadows, forces of darkness that had not been completely eradicated. While the heart of Aloria had banished the most powerful of the dark forces, remnants of corruption remained, festering beneath the surface. Aemon, ever watchful, began to notice strange occurrences. Animals in the forests began acting erratically. Crops in the farmlands withered despite the care of the farmers. The winds that once whispered of peace now carried an unsettling chill. He spoke to Lyra one evening, his voice grave. "I fear that the darkness is not truly gone," Aemon said. "There are signs of its return. Subtle, but they are there." Lyra frowned, troubled. "What do you mean?" "The land itself, it's changing. The darkness may have been banished for now, but I feel it's stirring beneath our feet. It's waiting." Lyra's heart sank. "Then we must be ready," she said. "We will not let it return." But the question lingered, how could they prepare for something that seemed to rise from the very earth itself? An evil that no blade could sever and no spell could banish? In the weeks that followed, Lyra and her companions began to investigate the strange events occurring throughout Aeloria. They ventured into the forests, the mountains, and the ruins that lay scattered across the kingdom, searching for clues. Along the way, they discovered remnants of an ancient, forgotten cult, the Cult of the Abyss. This dark group had worshipped the very forces that had once brought Aeloria to ruin. Though the cult had been destroyed long ago, it seemed that its influence had never truly left. One night, after a long journey through the mist-covered forests, Lyra and her companions arrived at an ancient temple deep within the wilderness. The walls were adorned with symbols of the abyss, and the air was thick with a strange energy. As they entered, a low voice echoed through the chamber. "You think you have defeated the darkness," the voice murmured, "but the true power lies beyond the veil. We will return, and this time, you will not stop us." A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, a figure who had once been a servant of the darkness, a sorcerer who had been banished long ago. Now, his body was a twisted shell of darkness, his eyes glowing with an eerie light. "I am Azrak," the figure hissed, "and I will bring the darkness back to Aeloria." The battle against Azrak was fierce. The sorcerer wielded powers unlike any Lyra had faced before, shadows that seemed to twist and consume the very light, curses that ravaged the land itself. But Lyra, now more powerful than ever, stood her ground. She called upon the heart of Aeloria, channeling its pure light into a beam that pierced the very heart of the dark sorcerer. Azrak screamed as the light shattered his form, but even as he disintegrated into nothingness, he laughed. "The darkness cannot be destroyed," he spat. "It lives within all things. It is the shadow that gives shape to the light." And with that, the sorcerer was gone. But his words lingered in Lyra's mind. Darkness and light were bound together, two sides of the same coin. The fight would never truly be over. The balance had to be maintained. Though Azrak had been defeated, Lyra knew that the fight was far from over. The kingdom of Aeloria was safe for now. But the battle between light and darkness would continue, as it always had. Lyra, Kael, Aemon, and Nyx stood as the guardians of the heart of Aeloria, protecting it and ensuring that its power was never misused. Aeloria would never be forgotten again. Its people, united by hope and the strength of their hearts, would keep the light burning. And as long as that light remained, the darkness would never truly prevail. In the years that followed, Lyra became a legend, not just as the savior of Aeloria but as a symbol of hope itself. The story of her journey, of the forgotten kingdom and its last hope, was passed down through generations, reminding the people that no darkness was too great to overcome, as long as the light of hope burned within them. And so, the kingdom of Aeloria endured, a beacon of hope in a world ever on the brink of darkness. The last hope had not only saved a kingdom but had reignited the belief that, no matter how far the darkness stretched, the light would always find a way. Years passed in relative peace. The kingdom of Aeloria flourished, and its people, strengthened by the trials of the past, lived their lives in harmony with the land. Lyra, now a queen in her own right, ruled with wisdom, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to protect the balance of light and darkness. Her companions Kael, Aemon, Nyx remained by her side, their bonds strengthened through the shared struggle and victories. However, despite the surface tranquility, Lyra couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong. The people of Aloria had grown complacent, their minds focused on their newfound prosperity, their hearts forgetting the lessons of the past. As time passed, whispers began to surface. Strange occurrences, subtle yet persistent, hinted that the darkness was not gone, but simply waiting for the moment of weakness to strike. One night, as Lyra sat alone in her chambers, a visitor came to her. A young traveler, ragged from his journey, stumbled into the royal halls. He was covered in soot, his face ashen, his eyes wide with fear. He fell to his knees before her. "Your Majesty," he gasped, "I bring urgent news. The darkness, it stirs again. I saw it with my own eyes." Lyra's heart tightened. She had feared this moment, and now it had come. "Tell me what you saw." The traveler hesitated, fear and sorrow clouding his words. "There's a place in the mountains, a forgotten temple. Deep within, an ancient relicone even the cult of the abyss could not touch has been awakened. It is pulling the shadows from all corners of the world, and even the heart of Aloria, it cannot stop it." Lyra's mind raced, her instincts sharpening. The heart of Aloria had been the kingdom's greatest safeguard, its very essence tied to the land's protection. To think that even the heart was powerless against this new force, the situation was worse than she had feared. "I will go," Lyra said, determination flashing in her eyes. "We will stop it, just as we did before." Lyra, Kale, Eamon, and Nyx gathered once again. They had faced trials that had tested their strength, their resolve, and their very souls, but this new threat felt different. It was as though the very fabric of the world was unraveling, as if something older and darker than anything they had fought before was waking. Together, they set out toward the mountains, where the forgotten temple lay. As they traveled, the land itself seemed to grow colder, the sky darker. The forests that had once been full of life were now eerily silent. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom. The journey was grueling, and as they neared the temple, the very ground seemed to pulse with dark energy. When they finally reached the entrance of the ancient ruin, they found it guarded by strange, twisted creatures, beasts that seemed to be born of shadow itself, their forms ever shifting, like living nightmares. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "The heart of the darkness. We must destroy it before it consumes us all." Kale, ever the protector, stepped forward. "We will not let that happen. Let's finish this." They fought their way through the temple, the battle raging against the creatures of shadow, until they reached the chamber at its core. In the center of the room stood an altar, dark and twisted, with an ancient relic pulsing with an ominous glow. The air around it crackled with dark magic, and Lyra could feel the overwhelming power it radiated. At the base of the altar was a stone black as night, yet shimmering with an eerie light. It was a fragment of the abyss itself, and Lyra knew that it was the source of the growing darkness. The same darkness that had once brought Aloria to its knees. "I must destroy it," Lyra said, her voice steady but heavy with the weight of the task ahead. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "We are with you, always." With a final breath, Lyra stepped forward and lifted her hand to the relic. As her fingers brushed against the dark stone, a surge of energy coursed through her, and for a moment, she felt the full weight of the abyss's hunger, its rage, its endless desire to consume everything. But she held firm, calling upon the strength of the heart of Aloria, the very essence of the land she loved. With a single, powerful shout, Lyra released all her power, channeling the light of the heart into the relic. A blinding flash of pure light filled the room, and the ground beneath them shook violently. The darkness screamed, but it was futile. The light overwhelmed it, shattering the relic into thousands of pieces. The temple collapsed, the walls crumbling as the dark force was eradicated. But as the dust settled, Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted, her body drained of energy. "We did it," Kale said, kneeling beside her. "It's over." The journey had been long and the battle difficult, but Aloria was saved once more. The land began to heal, the shadows that had once threatened to consume it finally vanished. Yet, Lyra knew the battle was never truly over. Light and darkness would always exist in balance, one giving meaning to the other. It was not a battle to be won forever but a vigilance to be kept. In the years that followed, Lyra worked to ensure the kingdom would remain protected, teaching her people the importance of balance and the need for constant vigilance. The heart of Aloria was enshrined in a new temple, not as a weapon, but as a symbol, a reminder of what had been fought for and what must always be protected. The legends of Lyra and her companions spread throughout the world. The Forgotten Kingdom had risen once again, not as a place of royalty and power, but as a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience in the face of darkness. The last hope had not only saved a kingdom, but had shown the world that even in the darkest times, there is always a way to fight back. And so, Lyra ruled, not as a queen above her people, but as one of them, always remembering that hope is a light that must be carried, not just by those in power, but by everyone. As the years passed, Lyra grew old, her hair now touched with silver, her face lined with the wisdom of many trials. But her spirit remained as strong as ever, a constant presence in the heart of Aloria. One day, she stood before the heart of Aloria, gazing at the stone that had saved them all. "It is not the relics or the power we wield that will determine our future," she whispered softly to herself. "It is the hope we carry in our hearts." And with that, she turned, walking out into the bright, golden sun that bathed the kingdom. The kingdom of Aloria would live on, as it always had, a place of light, of hope, and of the eternal struggle to preserve what was good. For as long as the kingdom stood, its people would remember the last hope. And in their hearts, the light would never fade. Many years had passed since the fall of the dark relic, and Aloria had flourished under the watchful eyes of Lyra and her companions. With the kingdom secured from the shadows, the people of Aloria turned their attention to the future. The gardens bloomed with vibrant flowers, and the fields stretched far and wide with bountiful harvests. The air itself seemed to hum with peace. But even in the most peaceful of times, Lyra could not forget the lessons learned from the battles of the past. She knew that darkness could never truly be vanquished, only kept at bay. The cost of complacency was high, and she had seen how fragile peace could be. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, overlooking the kingdom. Her heart swelled with pride, but also with a lingering sense of uncertainty. Would Aloria remain safe? Would future generations understand the true cost of peace? "You've been deep in thought, Your Majesty," Kale's voice interrupted, warm and familiar. Lyra turned to him, smiling softly. "I was thinking about the future. About the children who will inherit this land. I want them to understand the sacrifices that came before them, the hope that was carried through the darkest of times." Kale walked over and stood beside her. "They will, Lyra. Through us, through the stories we tell, and through the example we set." The sound of footsteps approached, and Eamon and Nyx joined them on the balcony. The four stood together, watching as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of purple and gold. "We've built something lasting," Eamon said, his voice rich with wisdom. "But the world does not stop changing. Our children will face their own battles. It is the way of things." Nyx, the ever-quiet one, spoke up then. "And it will be their choice whether to hold on to the light, even when the shadows return. Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of her role as queen more than ever. That's why I've decided, Aeloria needs a new path. One where the people do not rely on a single person to keep them safe, but on each other. I will establish a new council, a group of leaders from every corner of the kingdom. Together, they will guide Aeloria into the future. Kale looked at her with a mix of surprise and admiration. A council of the people? A brilliant idea, Lyra. Aemon's eyes shone with pride. It is what Aeloria deserves. Unity, not just from one leader, but from the hearts and minds of many. Lyra turned to face them fully, her heart steady. I will step down from the throne. It is time for the next generation to lead. It is not the crown that makes a kingdom strong, but the unity and resolve of its people. They will carry the legacy of hope. True to her vision, Lyra established the Council of Aeloria, composed of representatives from each region: farmers, artisans, scholars, and warriors. The council was designed to ensure that every voice was heard, that no one person held the power of the kingdom in their hands. The council would work together, making decisions for the greater good of Aeloria and keeping the balance between light and darkness. Lyra was no longer the queen, but she was still an integral part of the council. She acted as a guide, helping to teach the values of unity, compassion, and vigilance. Kale, Aemon, and Nyx also became members of the council, each bringing their own wisdom and strength. For the first time in centuries, the kingdom began to flourish not under a monarchy, but through the collective efforts of its people. The changes were slow, but steady. Trust grew within the hearts of the citizens, who now felt empowered to shape their own futures. And though the council's work was not always easy, the kingdom thrived. Trade flourished, new alliances were forged, and the land continued to prosper. The people, no longer burdened by the weight of a single ruler, found new strength in working together. Many more years passed, and the faces of Lyra and her companions grew older, their hair now streaked with silver and their eyes a little dimmer. But the fire of their hope never wavered. They knew their time was nearing its end, but they had laid the groundwork for a future that would carry on their ideals long after they were gone. On a quiet evening, when the stars hung high above the kingdom, Lyra stood before the heart of Aeloria once more. Her hand rested gently on the stone, feeling its warmth still alive, still strong. She closed her eyes and thought of the journey, the battles, the sacrifices. We've done it, she whispered. We've created a world where hope is carried by all. Her voice, though soft, echoed in the stillness of the night. Kale, Aemon, and Nyx stood behind her, their faces filled with contentment. We have, Kale agreed. Aemon smiled. And the flame will never die. The heart of Aeloria pulsed in rhythm with their words, as if agreeing with the truth in their hearts. Years passed, and Lyra's name became legend, her story told by parents to children, by teachers to students, by the wise to the young. She was no longer a queen, but a symbol of the strength that comes from unity, from hope, and from the unwavering belief that light can overcome even the darkest of shadows. And in the heart of Aeloria, the heart of Aeloria continued to shine, a beacon for all who sought peace. A reminder that even in the darkest times, the light would always endure. The last hope lived on, not as a solitary force, but as a collective dream shared by all who believed in the power of unity. It would never fade. It would never be forgotten. For the kingdom of Aeloria, as long as the stars shone above, would forever carry the legacy of hope. Years passed, but Aeloria's spirit remained unchanged. The council's leadership continued to guide the kingdom toward a brighter future. Its members, now more experienced, worked tirelessly, ensuring that the flame of hope would never dim. Lyra, Kale, Aemon, and Nyx, though older, still walked the lands they had once fought to protect. Watching as the kingdom they had saved now flourished in ways they had never dreamed possible. One quiet morning, as the sun rose over the distant mountains, Lyra sat by a large oak tree outside the council's chamber. She watched the dawn's first light illuminate the horizon and felt the quiet peace of the land settling around her. Eamon arrived beside her, his eyes thoughtful. "It's hard to believe it's been so long. Sometimes, I wonder if we could have done more. But then I see the children playing in the fields, the markets bustling, and the joy in people's eyes, and I know that we did what was needed." Lyra smiled gently, her heart at ease. "We did what we could, Eamon. The rest is in the hands of the people." Nyx, ever the silent observer, came to stand beside them. The trio watched the kingdom with pride. "I never thought I'd live to see Aloria in such peace," Nyx said softly. "In all the years I've wandered, I never found a place like this. It was always the fight, the endless battles. But here, we've created something different. A place where the people are strong, not because of their weapons, but because of their hearts." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the children in the distance, laughing as they chased each other through the fields. "It's a new beginning, and it's theirs now. Aloria is no longer just the kingdom of the past, it's a kingdom of the future." The years that followed saw many changes. The Council of Aloria became a model for other lands, and many sought its guidance on matters of peace and unity. Lyra's teachings, her wisdom, and her belief in the power of hope spread far beyond Aloria's borders. Though the battle against darkness had ended, there were those who still sought to upset the balance of the world. Hidden far away, in the forgotten corners of the land, whispers of old forces stirring began to spread once more. These forces, knowing that the heart of Aloria remained the kingdom's greatest source of strength, sought to find it and take its power for themselves. But the council had already prepared for such a time. Lyra had anticipated that peace would not last forever, that darkness would always try to return. She had already set in motion a new generation of guardians, young men and women who had been raised to protect the heart of Aloria and keep the balance. One such guardian was a young woman named Alina. She had grown up listening to the stories of Lyra's bravery and the kingdom's trials. From an early age, Alina had been trained in the ways of the heart, learning its secrets and understanding the responsibility that came with protecting it. As the shadows began to rise once more, Alina found herself called to duty. With a small group of trusted companions, she ventured deep into the heart of the kingdom, where the heart of Aloria pulsed with quiet energy. When she reached the ancient sanctuary, the place where the heart rested, she knelt and placed her hand upon it. The warmth that radiated from it was both comforting and powerful. She knew that the heart's power was not just a physical force, but a symbol of everything that Lyra and the others had worked for. It was a symbol of hope, unity, and strength. As Alina stood in the sanctuary, she could feel the faint stirrings of something dark in the air. The shadows had not disappeared completely, they had simply hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This moment had come. The kingdom was not fully prepared for the return of this ancient threat, but the guardians were. Alina and her companions set out, not to fight, but to preserve the peace, to remind the people of Aloria what they were truly fighting for. The battles were small at first: sabotages, whispers, rumors, and the guardians worked diligently to uncover the forces that were manipulating the kingdom from the shadows. But as time went on, the shadows began to grow bolder. Alina's team faced stronger enemies and darker magic. However, they were not alone. They had the teachings of Lyra and the heart of Aloria to guide them. And the people of Aloria, united in purpose and with faith in their guardians, stood by them. The final confrontation took place on the eve of the autumn equinox, when the veil between worlds was thinnest. The shadowed forces, led by a new, mysterious figure who claimed the title of the Dark Emissary, advanced toward the kingdom, aiming to claim the heart for themselves. Alina stood before the heart once more, surrounded by the guardians. The battle had already begun, but this final test would determine Aeloria's future. "Are you ready?" Kale's voice, older yet still strong, came from behind her. He had come to offer his wisdom and strength one last time. Alina nodded, gripping her sword tightly. "I am ready. For the kingdom. For the people." Together, they fought with all their might. Magic clashed, steel rang out, and the ground itself trembled under the weight of the conflict. The Dark Emissary was powerful, but they had one thing the darkness would never understand: the unity of Aeloria. As the battle reached its peak, Alina and her companions made their final stand. With the light of the heart pulsing through them, they defeated the darkness once more, pushing it back into the void from which it had come. As the last shadow faded, peace returned to Aeloria once more. The battle was over, but the heart, the symbol of unity and hope, remained. And so, the cycle continued. The people of Aeloria, guided by the wisdom of their ancestors, lived in peace, knowing that as long as they stood together, they would always overcome the darkness. Lyra's legacy, and the legacy of the last hope, lived on in the hearts of the people, passed down through generations. The heart of Aeloria, ever glowing, continued to shine as a reminder of the light that would never fade. The kingdom, though constantly changing, would always carry with it the spirit of hope, forever eternal. Decades passed in Aeloria. The kingdom, ever changing but eternally resilient, flourished as the light of hope and unity grew stronger. The heart of Aeloria, protected by the guardians, pulsed with quiet power, and the people thrived in peace. Yet, despite the kingdom's success, there was a subtle change in the air, like a whispered message carried by the wind, a promise that their story was not over. One evening, under the twilight sky, Alina, now a seasoned leader of the guardians, stood on a hill overlooking the city. The stars above shimmered brightly, as if the heavens themselves were watching over Aeloria. She had never felt so connected to the universe, as though the kingdom's peace had become part of something much larger, a force beyond her understanding. "Alina," came a familiar voice. Lyra had passed on many years ago, but her presence lingered in the kingdom, in the very air they breathed. Yet, Kale's voice brought Alina back to the present moment. "I wonder if the stars are watching over us," Alina said softly, her gaze still fixed on the heavens. "If they know what we've built here." "They know," Kale replied with a knowing smile. "The stars have always been a part of this story. The same way the light of the heart guides us, the stars have always been a guiding force. In the quiet moments, they remind us that we are never truly alone." As the two guardians stood together, the air grew still. And in that stillness, the whisper of a new prophecy began to form, one that would echo through Aeloria for centuries to come. Alina and Kale returned to the council, their hearts heavy with a new understanding. The stars, it seemed, had a message for Tama, warning. The peace they had fought for, though strong, was fragile. There were forces beyond their world that were watching, waiting, and soon, they would have to face something far greater than they had ever known. The council convened, gathering its most trusted leaders. The message from the stars was clear: the time would come when Aeloria would face a challenge from an unknown realm. It was a force of creation and destruction, born from the very fabric of the universe. The heart of Aeloria, while powerful, would not be enough to withstand it alone. "We must prepare," Alina said, her voice firm but filled with the weight of years spent guarding the kingdom. "The stars have spoken. It's not just about protecting Aeloria anymore. We will need to protect the balance of the universe itself." Kale stepped forward, placing his hand on the ancient scrolls that contained the wisdom of the old kingdoms. This is a different kind of threat. We cannot face it with swords or magic alone. The very essence of Aeloria's peace will be tested. The council members exchanged concerned glances, but Alina's calm presence reassured them. She knew that this was a trial they had to face, just as they had faced the darkness before. But this time, they would not be alone. The message from the stars spoke of a time when the skies themselves would darken. Not from clouds or storms, but from a rift that would open between the realms. This rift was not the work of any evil force, but of the balance of creation itself. The beings from this unseen realm, known as the Celestials, had once lived in harmony with Aeloria. However, their existence had slowly faded, as they were drawn away by the forces of time and space. Now, their return was inevitable. The Celestials, beings of pure light and energy, sought to restore their lost connection with the world. However, their presence threatened to disrupt the natural order of Aeloria, tearing at the fabric of reality itself. The kingdom would be caught between two worlds, the world of the Celestials, and the world they had fought so hard to protect. Alina knew that it was not a battle they could win with violence alone. This was a battle of understanding, of communication with forces beyond their comprehension. They would need to open their hearts and minds to the Celestials, to bridge the gap between worlds. The journey would take them far from Aeloria, into realms where time and space did not follow the rules they knew. Only by reaching the celestial heart, a relic of unimaginable power, would they be able to restore balance and ensure that both realms could coexist without tearing each other apart. And so, Alina and her most trusted companions, including Kale, Nyx, and several new guardians, set out on their greatest journey yet. They crossed beyond the borders of Aeloria, into lands untouched by time, where the sky shimmered with strange colors, and the ground was made of crystal. These were the borders of the celestial realm, a place where the laws of reality bent and twisted. For days, they traveled through this strange land, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. The further they went, the more they could feel the presence of the Celestials, beings of light who watched them silently from the shadows. They were not enemies, but beings of a different nature, ones that could not fully comprehend the world of flesh and stone. Finally, they reached the heart of the celestial realm, a vast and beautiful place, where light and sound seemed to emanate from every direction. In the center of this realm stood the celestial heart, a radiant orb of pure energy. It was here that Alina would make her stand, not as a warrior, but as a representative of Aeloria and its people. She stepped forward, feeling the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders. Celestials, she called out into the vastness. We are not your enemies. We seek only peace, balance, and understanding. If we are to live together, we must learn from one another. The Celestials, their forms shimmering with energy, stepped forward. They spoke in a language that resonated deep within Alina's heart. It was a language of unity, of creation, and of the shared bond between all living things. Through their communication, Alina realized that the Celestials had not intended harm. They were simply seeking a place to exist, a place to be part of the world once more. It was a misunderstanding, one that could be healed through mutual understanding and respect. After much dialogue and cooperation, the Celestials and the people of Aeloria came to a new understanding. The celestial heart, once a source of potential destruction, was now a beacon of harmony, linking the two realms together in balance. Aeloria's future was brighter than ever, not because they had defeated an enemy, but because they had embraced the unknown with open hearts. The legacy of Lyra, Kale, Aemon, and the others lived on, not just in the kingdom, but in the stars themselves. As Alina returned to Aeloria, she looked up at the night sky. The stars no longer felt distant and cold. They were no longer just a reminder of the past, they were a symbol of the future. One that would always be filled with hope, unity, and the eternal light of the heart of Aloria. With the realms now in harmony, Aloria flourished in ways no one had thought possible. The Celestials, though not fully visible to the mortal eye, had become integral to the kingdom's daily life. Their light guided the people in both literal and spiritual ways, creating a bond that united Aloria's people in ways words could not express. The ancient magic of the heart of Aloria pulsed stronger than ever, its energy now shared with the Celestials, creating a new form of power, one that was not born of conflict, but of peace. Alina stood at the balcony of the grand castle, looking out over the kingdom. The sky was painted with the first light of dawn, the stars beginning to fade as the sun rose. It was a quiet, peaceful morning, the kind of morning that she had dreamed of during the darkest times of her journey. Beside her, Kale stood in silence, watching the same horizon. "I never imagined it would end like this," he said. "We fought so long, so hard. And now, it's not about fighting anymore. It's about understanding." Alina nodded. "The hardest battles are the ones where we fight our own fear, our own doubts. But the journey we've been on has taught me something important. Peace is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to see the value in it and grow." Kale smiled, looking back at her. "You've become something I never imagined, Alina. A true leader, not just with strength, but with wisdom and compassion." Alina's gaze softened. "I think the journey made me realize that the real power lies in the connections we make, in the understanding we cultivate. We've restored Aloria, not just with magic, but with the hearts of its people." As the years passed, Aloria entered a new age of peace and prosperity. The heart of Aloria no longer sat alone, its energy now intertwined with the celestial forces, creating a new form of harmony. The Celestials, once distant and silent, became guardians and teachers, guiding the people in the ways of light and energy. Under Alina's leadership, the kingdom flourished. Trade, culture, and knowledge were exchanged freely with other realms. The borders between the worlds became more fluid, as the people of Aloria learned how to communicate and cooperate with beings beyond their understanding. The wisdom of the Celestials enriched their lives, and in turn, the people of Aloria taught the Celestials about the beauty of emotion, connection, and the fleeting nature of time. In the heart of the kingdom stood a grand temple, a place of learning, peace, and unity, where both Alorians and Celestials gathered to study the mysteries of the universe. This temple, built with the very essence of the heart, was a beacon to all who sought enlightenment. One fateful day, Alina stood before the temple, watching a new generation of young guardians training. The air was filled with the sound of their laughter, their energy vibrant and full of life. The future of Aloria was in good hands. Kale stood beside her, his expression contemplative. "Do you think we've truly done all we can, Alina? Is this the end of our journey?" Alina's smile was calm, knowing. "No, Kale. This is just the beginning. We've set the foundation for something greater, something eternal. As long as the heart of Aloria continues to beat, as long as there is unity in the hearts of our people, our journey will never end." They both looked up at the sky, where the stars now shone brightly once more, their light reflected in the eyes of the young guardians below. The light of the heart, the light of the Celestials, and the light of Aloria's people had become one, a force that would guide them for centuries to come. Many centuries later, long after Alina and Kale had passed into legend, the story of the Forgotten Kingdom and its last hope was still told across the realms. The heart of Aloria remained at the center of the kingdom, glowing with the same vibrant energy it had since the days of the Great Battle. The guardians who now stood watch were no longer just warriors, they were healers. teachers, and guides, ensuring that the lessons of the past were never forgotten. Aloria, no longer just a kingdom, had become a symbol of unity across worlds. A place where the barriers between realms had been erased, and where peace reigned, not because of the absence of conflict, but because of the strength to face it together. And in the deepest vaults of the kingdom, a new scroll had been written, one that was passed down from generation to generation. It told of the time when the stars whispered their message of hope, when the celestials returned, and when the people of Aloria stood united to protect the balance of the universe. It was a reminder that the journey would never truly end. The stars would always be there, watching over them, and the heart would continue to beat ever steady, ever bright, guiding the way for all who sought peace, understanding, and the light that lay within their hearts. Even in the tranquil age of peace, there were whispers that echoed through the walls of Aloria's grand temple. A hidden truth, long concealed by time itself, still beckoned to those who would dare to seek it. It was said that deep within the heart of the kingdom, a final secret remained, one that could reshape not just Aloria but all the realms beyond. One day, a young scholar named Liana ventured into the ancient library of the temple, a place that housed the most sacred texts of Aloria. She had always felt a strange pull to the forgotten corners of the library, as though the very air there held the answer to a mystery that had never been solved. Her heart beat faster with each step as she approached a dusty tome hidden behind a wall of other ancient books. The leather binding was worn and cracked, and the title was nearly unreadable. But Liana could sense that this was no ordinary book. It was calling to her. She gingerly opened it, and the pages seemed to glow softly as if acknowledging her presence. As she read, her eyes widened with realization. This was not a story. It was a record of a pact made long ago, a pact between the Celestials and the first guardians of Aloria. The pact spoke of a third heart, a hidden force capable of altering the very fabric of reality itself. This heart was said to have the power to shape destinies, to either create or destroy entire worlds. It had been hidden, buried beneath the kingdom, for centuries, its power too dangerous for any single being to control. Liana's mind raced. Could this be the secret that the legends had alluded to? Could this be the true test for Aloria's future? Liana's discovery sent ripples through the kingdom. The High Council, along with the remaining guardians, gathered to discuss what to do with this newfound knowledge. The Celestials, too, came down from the heavens to offer their counsel. It was clear that no one could ignore the existence of the third heart any longer. The heart's power has always been hidden, said Arian, a celestial who had once guided Alina through the darkest moments of her journey. It is not evil, but neither is it something to be taken lightly. It is a force of creation and destruction. If we allow it to awaken, the balance we fought so hard to establish may be threatened. Alina's daughter, Serena, now a revered guardian in her own right, stepped forward. But how can we ensure it does not fall into the wrong hands? Is it possible to keep this secret forever? The Celestials fell silent. Then, from their ranks, an elder named Lumira spoke. The third heart is not just a power that can be controlled. It is a choice of the heart, a choice that will define the fate of all realms. Only those pure of heart and spirit may awaken it. Those who seek it for personal gain or selfish ambition will find themselves destroyed by it. A council was formed to decide who would be entrusted with the task of protecting the third heart. It was a monumental decision, as the heart's power could be both a blessing and a curse. Alina's legacy had left a kingdom where peace reigned, but it was fragile, and this new challenge tested the very foundation of that peace. Liana, determined to understand the truth, offered herself as the one who would seek the heart's resting place. She was a scholar, not a warrior, but she believed that knowledge, wisdom, and the power of choice were just as important as strength and courage. The guardians, though wary, agreed to aid her on this perilous quest. Deep beneath the roots of the kingdom, in caverns so old that even the stones seemed to whisper of ancient secrets, Leanna descended. The path was treacherous, fraught with trials that tested every aspect of her being. Illusions danced before her eyes, shadows that whispered doubts, and spirits that sought to turn her from her course. But Leanna pressed on, her resolve unwavering. As she reached the deepest chamber, the third heart lay before her, a glowing sphere of energy, pulsating with an almost sentient rhythm. It was beautiful, its glow filled with the very essence of creation itself. The moment Leanna touched it, a surge of energy coursed through her, and she saw visions of countless worlds, some flourishing, others falling into ruin. She saw the future of Aloria, of the Celestials, of every being that had ever touched this realm. The heart spoke to her, not with words, but with feelings, an overwhelming sense of love and sorrow, creation and destruction. It was the essence of all things, both light and dark. You, Leanna, the heart seemed to whisper, are the chosen one. Will you wield this power, or will you protect it? Leanna closed her eyes and whispered the only answer she knew to be true. I will protect it. For as long as there is life in my heart, I will not allow this power to destroy what we have built. I will be the guardian, not the wielder. With that, the third heart's glow softened, and the power that had once threatened to tear worlds apart settled peacefully into her hands. Leanna understood then that the true strength of the heart was not in controlling it, but in guarding it, keeping it safe, and ensuring that it would never fall into the wrong hands. Leanna returned to the kingdom, the third heart now securely hidden away in a secret sanctuary beneath the grand temple. The people of Aloria, though unaware of the trial that had taken place, felt a renewed sense of peace, as though the world itself had breathed a collective sigh of relief. Years passed, and the kingdom continued to thrive. The legend of the third heart, however, lived on, passed down from generation to generation as a reminder that with great power came great responsibility. The heart would remain hidden, its secrets known only to those chosen to protect it. And so, the story of the Forgotten Kingdom and its last hope became a tale not just of war and peace, but of the quiet courage that lay in choosing to protect the balance of the world, rather than seeking to control it. For it was in the hearts of those who chose love, unity, and selflessness that Aloria found its true strength and its eternal legacy. Time passed in the kingdom of Aloria, and the peace established by Alina and her companions endured. But with it came the knowledge that there would always be new challenges on the horizon. The third heart, hidden beneath the grand temple, was no longer just a myth, but a living legend, the promise of power and hope. Its secret remained protected by Leanna, who had become known as the Keeper of the Eternal Flame, a title she wore with quiet pride and solemn responsibility. The flame was a symbol of the heart's dormant power, a flame that could either ignite new life or reduce everything to ash. Leanna, now older and wiser, had continued her studies, seeking deeper understanding of the heart and its mysteries. She had dedicated her life to ensuring that the heart's energy would never be used for harm. As the keeper, she had become more than a scholar. She was a guardian of the balance, a silent protector of a secret that no one but her could fully comprehend. Yet, despite her vigilance, the echoes of the heart's power began to stir once more. It started as a whisper, just a faint stirring in the ancient roots of Aloria. No one could quite place its origin, but rumors spread like wildfire. The heart was calling to someone, or something, hidden in the depths of the forgotten lands. It was a call to power, to those who sought to rewrite the rules of the world for their own gain. And soon, a shadowy figure appeared on the outskirts of Aloria, a mysterious sorcerer known only as Valen. Valen was a rogue sorcerer, banished from realms long past for dabbling in forbidden magics. He had heard the whispers of the heart, and with the ambition of one who sought immortality, he believed the heart held the key to his ultimate power. The teachings of the Celestials and the wisdom of the Guardians meant nothing to him. What he sought was far more dangerous, a heart that could reshape existence itself. Lyanna, upon learning of his presence, felt a cold chill deep within her. She had known that this day might come, but she had hoped that the power of the third heart would remain dormant forever. The time for action had come. Lyanna summoned the Guardians, including Serena, who had now become one of the kingdom's most revered leaders. Together, they began to strategize, their minds focused on protecting the kingdom and the heart that had once brought them peace. The Celestials also returned to aid them, their guidance more important than ever in these dark times. "We cannot allow Valen to find the heart," Serena said, her voice steady but filled with concern. "If he succeeds, there may be no kingdom left to protect. He is as dangerous as any force we've faced." Alina's spirit, though no longer present in the physical world, seemed to linger in the hearts of those who had once fought alongside her. Her wisdom, passed down through generations, guided them now, reminding them that true strength lay not in power alone, but in unity. Together, they set out on a journey to confront the sorcerer and protect the heart from falling into the wrong hands. It was a mission filled with uncertainty, but it was one they had to undertake. The kingdom's future depended on it. As Lyanna and the Guardians ventured deeper into the lands where the heart's power began to stir, they encountered strange phenomena. The land itself seemed to change, twisted by the magic of the rogue sorcerer. Forests turned to barren wastelands, and rivers ran dry as Valen's influence spread like a sickness. At the heart of this corruption, they found the ruins of an ancient citadel, a place that once stood as a beacon of knowledge, now overrun with shadows and twisted magic. Valen's presence was palpable, a dark force that seemed to resonate through the very air. "He's close," Lyanna whispered, feeling the weight of the heart's power pulsing beneath her skin. "We must hurry." As they entered the citadel, the very walls seemed to writhe with energy, reacting to the disturbance of their presence. And then, standing in the center of the great hall, they saw him, Valen. He was a figure cloaked in dark robes, his eyes gleaming with madness and ambition. In his hands, he held an ancient staff, its tip glowing with the same energy that surrounded the heart. "You think you can stop me?" Valen's voice echoed through the ruins. "The heart belongs to those who dare to claim it, and I will be the one to claim its power." Lyanna stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "You cannot control what you do not understand, Valen. The heart is not a tool for destruction, it is a force of balance. You will destroy yourself if you continue down this path." The sorcerer laughed, a hollow sound that resonated through the ruins. "Balance? There is no balance. There is only power, and I will have it." In an instant, the battle began. Dark magic surged through the citadel, a fierce clash between light and shadow. Lyanna, though not a warrior by nature, stood firm, her resolve stronger than ever. Serena and the Guardians fought alongside her, each using their unique abilities to counter the magic that Valen wielded. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity, the citadel trembling under the force of the clash. But as the conflict reached its peak, Lyanna felt a familiar energy stir within her, a warmth, a connection to the heart itself. At the heart of the citadel, the third heart began to glow, its power swelling as if it had awakened from a long slumber. Lyanna, realizing that the time had come to end the struggle, called out to the heart. "Please," she whispered, her voice filled with the weight of the centuries of guardianship. "Help us protect Aloria. Help us restore balance." The heart responded, its energy expanding outward, washing over the citadel like a wave of light. Valen, unable to comprehend the force he had sought to control, was consumed by the power of the heart. His staff shattered, his dark magic unraveling in an instant. In the end, it was not Lyanna's strength alone that defeated Valen, it was the heart's choice. The heart, understanding the value of life, chose to protect Aloria, choosing balance over destruction. With a final surge of energy, the heart sealed the ruins, locking away the corrupted magic forever. Valen was gone, his ambition extinguished by the very force he had sought to command. The battle was won, but Lyanna knew that the true victory lay in the peace they had restored. Aloria, once again, stood as a symbol of hope, its people living in harmony with the celestials and the forces of nature. But Lyanna also understood that the power of the heart could never be taken for granted. It would always be a force of balance, one that required vigilant guardianship. Lyanna, now older and more serene, continued her role as the keeper of the eternal flame. She passed down her knowledge to the next generation of guardians, ensuring that the heart's secrets would never be forgotten. And as she gazed out over the peaceful kingdom, she knew that Aloria's legacy of hope, love, and balance would live on, forever guided by the silent, steady rhythm of the heart. Years passed, and Aloria flourished under the guardianship of Lyanna and the new generation of guardians. The kingdom became a beacon of light, its prosperity a testament to the strength of unity and the wisdom of the heart. But as the seasons changed, so did the world around them. Far beyond the borders of Aloria, the winds of change began to stir. New kingdoms rose and fell, and the ancient powers of the Celestials began to fade into the annals of history. The heart, though still protected by Lyanna and the Guardians, began to withdraw, its power fading in the face of a world that no longer believed in the magic it once held. Lyanna, now older and with the weight of centuries on her shoulders, began to sense that something was amiss. The balance she had worked so hard to maintain seemed to be slipping. She had heard rumors of strange occurrences, crops failing without reason, animals disappearing from the forests, and people falling ill for no apparent cause. The heart's light had dimmed, and with it, so too did the peace of the kingdom. "I fear the time of the heart may be ending," Lyanna murmured to Serena one evening as they stood by the sacred flame. "Perhaps the world has outgrown it." Serena, her eyes filled with concern, shook her head. "No, Lyanna. The heart has been a part of Aloria for as long as we can remember. It has given us hope, and it will continue to do so. But perhaps it is not the heart that is fading. Perhaps it is the people who have forgotten how to listen." Lyanna's heart sank at her words. Was it true? Had the people of Aloria become too complacent, too caught up in their own desires and ambitions to remember the true purpose of the heart? The flame that had once burned bright within the kingdom seemed to flicker in response, a subtle but undeniable sign that something was changing. One night, as Lyanna meditated in the Temple of the Heart, a strange sensation washed over her. It was as if the heart itself was calling to her, its energy reaching out across the distance between them. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was an urgent whisper that seemed to echo through her soul. Without hesitation, Lyanna rose from her meditation and summoned the guardians. Together, they traveled to the temple, where the heart's energy was strongest. As they entered the sacred chamber, they found the heart glowing dimly, its light barely enough to cast a shadow on the walls. The heart, once a radiant beacon of power and hope, was fading, its very essence slowly diminishing. "What is happening?" Serena asked, her voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. Lyanna approached the heart, her hand hovering over its surface. She could feel the pulse of its energy, weak but still present. "The heart is calling to me. It has always been a part of Aloria, but now it seems to be fading." Perhaps it has given all it can. Serena's face tightened with resolve. Then we must find out why. If the heart is dying, then so too is the kingdom. Leanna nodded. There is one last place I must go where the heart's power was first awakened. The heart's origins lie in the ancient lands of the Celestials, and there may be something there that can save it. But the journey will be dangerous. The heart may no longer be able to protect us. Leanna and the Guardians embarked on a journey unlike any they had undertaken before. They traveled across treacherous mountains, through dense forests, and over vast deserts, each step taking them further from the safety of Aloria. Their destination was a place known only in legends, the Forgotten Land, a realm where the Celestials had once walked and where the heart had first been forged. The journey was grueling, and with each passing day, the signs of the heart's weakening grew more apparent. The land around them began to wilt, and the once pristine rivers dried up. It was as though the very fabric of the world was unraveling, and with each step, Leanna could feel the pull of the heart, its call growing fainter. After many days of travel, they finally reached the Forgotten Land, a place untouched by time, where the Celestials had once gathered to weave the threads of fate. The land was eerily quiet, the air thick with an ancient magic that had not been disturbed in millennia. In the center of the land stood a massive stone structure, an altar, upon which the heart had once been placed to channel the powers of the Celestials. But now, the altar was empty, the power that had once radiated from it long gone. "This is where it all began," Leanna said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "The heart was born here, but now it is no longer enough." Serena looked around, her gaze filled with awe and sorrow. "Do you think we can find a way to save it?" Leanna turned to face her, her eyes filled with determination. "We must. The heart is not just a source of power, it is a symbol of hope. If we lose it, we lose everything. I will not let that happen." As Leanna stood before the altar, the heart's energy pulsed weakly beneath her hand. She closed her eyes and focused, reaching out with her mind and soul to the ancient forces that had created the heart. In the silence, a voice spoke to her, gentle, yet powerful. "The heart has given its gift to the world. Now, it is time for you to choose. Will you let it fade into the past, or will you carry its light into the future?" Leanna's heart ached with the weight of the question. The heart had given so much to Aloria, but now it was time to decide: should the heart be allowed to rest, its legacy honored, but left behind? Or should it be rekindled, its power renewed for future generations? "I choose the future," Leanna whispered, her voice resolute. With that decision, the heart began to glow once more, brighter than it had in ages. The light spread across the Forgotten Land, touching the very earth itself. The ancient magic of the Celestials began to stir, and the heart's power was reborn, stronger than ever. Leanna returned to Aloria, the heart's power restored and its energy pulsing vibrantly once more. The kingdom flourished as it had never done before, its people now more connected to the heart and its legacy of hope. Aloria was not simply a kingdom, it was a living testament to the power of unity, balance, and the enduring light of the heart. Leanna, now older and wiser, continued to serve as the keeper of the eternal flame, but she no longer carried the burden alone. The people of Aloria had learned to listen, to honor the heart, and to protect it as they had always meant to. And as the sun rose each morning over the kingdom, its rays reflecting off the heart, Leanna knew that the future of Aloria was bright. The heart would never fade again, for as long as the kingdom stood, its light would guide the way.